Movie Action, an Art and Profession. Introduction. When I decided to write the initial version of this book, it was simply in order to have a written document to give to people who attended my movie action seminars, something they could take away and later go back and remind themselves of the points gone over in the intensive 2-day lectures. At the time I published the book, I presumed that apart from the seminar crowd and those movie action professionals that know me personally, I would not sell more than a few handfuls of books. Wow, was I wrong? At the time of sending this updated version to print, copies of this book have been sold in 14 countries, so I can presume that my initial feeling that there might be a need for such a book was not only correct, but also greatly underestimated. I have asked for everyone that buys the book and takes it on location with them to send me a photograph of it in some interesting location. So anyone reading this and wishing to participate in an album of the book's travels, please send me a picture of the book in an interesting part of the world. Please send those pictures to me at armstrongaction@gmail.com. armstrongaction@gmail.com. The initial idea of this book was to explain my own process to mostly stunt people, hoping to further their careers into stunt coordinating and directing movie action. But as the text expanded, I realized it had merit for almost all areas of movie making involved in action sequences. Obviously, it will be clearer and have more direct resonance with people involved particularly in the action areas and departments of movie making. But it also has merit, which can be easily seen to refer to other areas and departments and areas of the entire modern movie making process. I cannot teach anyone how to feel, just as I cannot identify every single process or piece of equipment needed to create every particular type of action in all movies. But what I can do is teach how to approach and prepare for most scenarios that will potentially appear in the business of making action movies. It is very important that everyone in this profession designs and creates their own style, feel, and attitude of approaching action in movies. I'll repeat that. It is very important that everyone in this profession designs and creates their own style, feel, and attitude of approaching action in movies. This book will hopefully help serve that process by answering some questions that are universally asked. I certainly had a lot of fun writing it, as it caused me to search back through the years of memories, some of them utterly crazy now that I look back. Many of these memories are of times on movies with industry greats and legends no longer with us. I hope everyone reading has as much enjoyment as I have had writing it. I started holding the movie action lectures because I felt that real working processes of the profession I had been involved in for so many years on movies made all over the world was simply not being passed on in any reliable way to future generations of filmmakers. This was especially true when it came to stunt coordinators and action unit directors. It seemed incredible, and still does, to me that the profession of movie stunt coordinator and action unit director was, and often still is, being treated like something from the dark arts. Knowledge, skills, and help is, simply not being passed on by experienced people of my own generation to up-and-coming young stunt people of next generation. I feel this is incompletely unsatisfactory and absolutely unacceptable. The general, and in my opinion, utterly ridiculously old-fashioned attitude within the movie and particularly stunt profession was that people had to learn on the job by gathering whatever information and methodology they could. Much of this supposedly magical information is still amazingly clouded by myth, legend, and a great deal of nonsense, and quite frankly, utter bullshit. It is information which is often completely outdated by the time it's discovered anyway. This entire system all seemed then, and still feels to me now, to be an odd attitude and not at all productive to anyone involved, except perhaps to one or two of my older generation stunt and action coordinators who are simply trying to protect their position well past their sell-by date. I completely resent this old-fashioned attitude. I feel that the next generation of bright young stunt and action specialists will eventually overtake my older generation anyway. It's inevitable, as that is the way of life, the way it should be. To paraphrase a saying, our strength is our tradition, but we accept the evolution of our art. In my opinion, it's completely wrong and illogical to try and protect our position by stopping the next generation from discovering our tricks of the trade. The fact of life is that the next generation will, of course, eventually overtake us and make their own way without us. That is simply the way of almost all competitive professions. Just as in sport, the newer, faster, brighter, and probably cleverer younger stunt coordinators will eventually take the jobs of the older guys and girls. I see nothing wrong in that. I really don't subscribe to the good old days attitude. Now is now. And most things in our profession, just as in most professions, get safer, more reliable, and simply better as they develop. Anyone who thinks this is not the case is probably driving a Model T Ford or even riding a horse to work. So with all that in mind, here goes. Chapter 1. A little about my background and beginnings. When I came into the movie making profession in the early 70s, I was amazingly fortunate to meet and work with some absolutely incredible and groundbreaking pillars of the movie making and stunt creating professions. Somehow throughout my entire career, there always seemed to be some great force in the shape of gifted people who were prepared to help, advise, and support me and my journey through the movie business. This good fortune helped shape my career over 43 years and locations in 44 countries around the world. I can't say if I was any good at my profession, but I can say I was quite successful. I have been lucky enough to work in places ranging from rainforests and deserts in the south to the frozen wastes of the Arctic Circle in the north, as well as just about every type of location on Earth in between. I have been incredibly lucky to have traveled many times around the world, but without the amazing help and support of some truly great people, my own career would actually have gone nowhere. Many wonderful people, to some extent or another, took me under their wing and helped me immeasurably. Among those talented and amazingly generous people are several true legends. Some of these you will have heard of, and others perhaps not, but believe me when I say that each of these people is a true movie-making legend in their own right. Don Siegel, Peter Yates, John Boorman, Hal Needham, Russell Mulcahy? Russell Mulcahy, Frank Pearson, Roland Emmerich, Dean Parasot, Alex Proyas, and Wayne Isham, who all taught me what it really means to hold the position of director. Michael Stevenson, Terry Churcher, David Tringham, Hugh Atwell, Derek Cracknell, Terry Clegg, Terry Needham, and Mike Hausman, who all took the time to help and teach a new young kid trying to make his way in the movie business. And most especially, above all else, my brother Vic Armstrong, who started the entire process of a career in movies for me. Without the kindness, help, trust, and support of all of these people, I would not have had a career, much less the wonderful life I have been so lucky enough to enjoy. Some of these guys no longer with us. All of them I will be eternally grateful to for their kindness, trust, friendship, and belief. I hope that this book will in some small way help others in their life and careers just as I was helped. Chapter 2. Choosing a profession in the movie business. This is an interesting subject because in some ways your profession will often actually end up choosing you. Though this might sound very obvious, make sure you choose your profession and sub-profession within it really well and for the right reasons. It's very easy to presume you should or will do this or that, but in reality, the decision of what profession will almost always be made for you. What might be a perfect career for your friend, sidekick, brother, sister, or parent might not be anything like the right profession for you. I am a living example of someone who came into the movie business and then migrated between professions within the industry, and actually I benefited hugely from having such a broad and varied basis of experience within the movie business because I was able to see far more sides to it than someone who had only ever been involved in one aspect of the movie making process. As well as my long career as a stunt coordinator and action director, and during that time as a stunt performer, I spent quite a few years as an assistant director on some truly wonderful movies. During this quite extraordinary and incredibly lucky career, I have served my time and made quite a successful living. As a location manager, unit manager, production assistant, production manager, second unit director, main unit director, producer, associate producer, technical advisor, actor, narrator, host, and screenwriter. There are very few people working in movies today who, for better or worse, have held a broader spectrum of positions within the movie industry than I have been lucky enough to hold. It has been an amazing journey, and because of it, I now have an entirely new career as public speaker, host, teacher, and author. As a young kid, I rode motorcycles and drove cars with tremendous passion, even if not always with great skill and/or success. In fact, sometimes I rode and drove without any great skill or judgment, but I always had the passion. So I'd grown up presuming I would make my fortune as a race car driver. It was only when I got to my early teens the realization began to appear that in order to follow this particular profession, I would need money. Lots of it. I had failed to notice, as I read about my childhood car racing heroes, that all of them were from very wealthy backgrounds. I certainly was not. As this realization settled heavily on me, I decided to migrate my ambitions from my original love, cars, to motorcycles. This was at least partially motivated by the fact that all guys I had read about who completed competed successfully in cars were from rich backgrounds, but all of those I admired who competed in motorcycle events seemed to come from working class, if not actually pretty poor backgrounds. I reasoned, okay, if they could do it, I can do it. So at the age of 14, I competed in my very first motorcycle trial. I was competing against adults, many, if not most, with far greater skill and almost all with much better equipment than my own, self-prepared at-home machine. I retired from the event with mechanical failure about 3/4 of the way through the day, but the stage was forever set. From this point on, motorcycle off-road events would become a very big part of my future. My enthusiasm and energy far outweighed my skill, but I continued to compete in motorcycle trials and later enduros for many years. And it was this particular discipline which eventually led me to work on my first movie, actually TV production. It was also during these years that my attitude toward personal and professional discipline was formed. All the talk in the world fades to zero importance when the flag drops. I have always cherished the important life lessons that I learned competing on motorcycles and later in cars. These years taught me that preparation is everything. This mindset became invaluable in my movie career. Photo. Caption. Competing in a motorcycle enduro in southern England. To this day, I see people who are simply not prepared at the right time and place and fail because of it. I have always compared the preparation of movie action to the preparation before a competition event. It's important to be ready and have everything working, because the flag will drop and the event will happen whether you are ready or not. I also have no patience for lack of preparation when there has been time to do it. I have seen many potentially great ideas and wished for expectations simply fade to dust and nothing more than empty dreams. This is simply because people have not been ready at the precise time they need to be. It's no use having the greatest idea in the world if it cannot be delivered at the precise moment in time it's needed. Many potentially great people become remembered for nothing more than excuses at the critical time of need. My rule is simple: always be ready way ahead of time, and also have at least one, more if possible, backup plans. Life rarely goes as planned. Winners are the ones who win no matter what the event, life, other competitors, and the world throws at them. Another photo. About to start a Formula Ford race sometime in the mid-80s with advisor and car owner Robert Singh, whose career in racing went on to great success. Another photo. In the early 1980s, about to compete in a pro racer versus stunt performers car race in England at Brands Hatch. In car is stuntman and professional race car driver Valentino Musetti. Racing was also the discipline that got my brother Vic, who is 8 years older than I, into the world of movie stunts, though in his case it was racing horses and not vehicles. Vic was discovered as a potential stuntman just as his own career as a steeplechase jockey was coming to an end. He had simply grown too big, and no matter how hard he tried, he could not ever truly be lightweight enough. Even though steeplechase jockeys are far heavier than the tiny flat racing riders everyone associates with the profession of jockey, Vic was over 6 feet tall and had always been very muscular, and because of this, relatively heavy. Vic's entry into the movie industry happened a few years ahead of mine, when our father, Bob Armstrong, who was a steeplechase racehorse trainer, had been called to supply a big horse that could jump some very large walls and fences during an action-escape chase sequence in a movie. The picture was the 1996 production Arabesque, starring Gregory Peck and Sophia Loren. Our family, and in particular our father, had become known to several British stuntmen because of the horses. This was because many of the British stunt profession in those days were horse racing enthusiasts, and so the chance to exercise racehorses for their morning workout, which was something our dad was always in need of, was a win-win for everyone involved. Dad got the horses worked out, and the stunt guys got a chance to keep their riding practice tuned up on some top-class thoroughbreds. The chase sequence in Arabesque called for Gregory Peck's character to make his escape dressed in traditional Arab robes aboard a horse that carries him galloping over lawns, over walls, fences, and hedges while being chased by a helicopter. Not a job for the faint of heart. My father certainly had the horse for the job, but very quickly it became quite evident that a horse capable of performing the dramatic action needed was going to require a far stronger and more proficient rider on board than the amateur rider stuntman that was originally destined to double Gregory Peck for the sequence. Gently exercising a racehorse for road work in the morning and riding it flat out over a seriously challenging obstacle course being chased by a helicopter are two vastly different endeavors. It was immediately clear that the getaway horse would need a far more proficient rider. The obvious answer was for my brother to double Gregory Peck. This relatively simple chain of events started a truly epic, almost half-century-long career that is still, I feel absolutely accurately listed in the Guinness Book of World Records as the world's most prolific movie stuntman, Vic Armstrong. Vic's career from this point on was pretty meteoric. So much so that by the time I started to realize that my own career as an off-road motorcycle competitor was floundering, if not actually failing, Vic was already beginning to coordinate as well as actually perform stunts on movies and television shows. He'd continue to work on several movies as Gregory Peck's stunt double, and then when Peck decided to star in and direct the movie Billy Two Hats, he asked Vic to not only be the actor and star's stunt double, but also the movie's stunt coordinator. Vic's career as the leading stunt coordinator had now begun. One of his next jobs in this capacity of stunt coordinator was a British TV series being filmed in the south of France, The Zoo Gang. I would hope not, but I feel perhaps more out of kindness than out of real solid belief that his kid brother was the absolutely best guy for the job. He called me to be the motorcycle riding and car driving stunt double for Sir John Mills on the show. Another photo. Vic in the early 1960s before taking a racehorse out for road work.